Hey everyone, welcome to the episode, and I'd like to welcome back for an encore performance, the mighty Eaglet ERM.
Thank you very much. It's very nice to hear again.
Yes, thanks for coming back for a follow-up interview.
Of course.
About halfway through our first interview, I was like, oh, this guy's the real deal. I need to have better questions, so I thought we had to do it again.
Yeah, I thought you had really good questions, though. I mean, we had some really good conversations and brought up a lot of good points, even if I might have spiraled out a little bit. I don't really remember that much in detail what we talked about, but
yeah. Some good stuff for sure.
Definitely.
But I just wanted to explore some things further. So the first thing I wanted to ask you about is, now that I've done my homework, I want to hear your thoughts on the Battle Garegga 2016 remaster.
Okay, sure. First of all, it's great. It's definitely the best port of the game by far. And they've thought about pretty much everything that you could wish for in a port like that, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have, first of all, all of the different settings you can use. In terms of lag, even because the bare PCB itself in the arcade has some built-in input lag.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No, it's really strange. It's one of the few games that has it, and it really feels like you get a different feel from it playing it versus any other game. And this is something that you can set yourself in the options, which I think is really great. And then all of the gadgets that new players can use to practice the game, where they can actually see in the graph how high the rank is, and boss health, and how long time they have until the boss's time out, what item comes next, and so on. I think it's really helpful. Not that it really matters that much for the old players, because we already know the game so well. But for someone just trying to approach the game as a new player, I would definitely say that the port is easily the best way to get started with it, definitely.
Well, that's great to hear. I was curious, is there any kind of training mode in it? Like a stage select, those types of things?
I've only been playing the port a little bit, but so I think you can select stages in the custom variant, but otherwise you can just use different sort of save states, which is really...
Oh, it has a save state feature.
Yeah, that's really cool for a console port.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't think I've seen that in any other game, to be honest.
I haven't.
No, and especially for a game like Garegga, which is infamous for not having properly working save states in most main builds, it's really useful for a lot of players who are trying to learn specific tricks.
Just by the sound of things, it sounds like if someone is new to the game, that would be a great port or a great way to get started.
Oh, definitely. And
would you say that's correct?
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely correct. And also, a lot of the new modes, they're fun in their own right. The premium mode is very different from the base game, but it's still a fun game. The other modes like custom might be fun to just joke around with if you're interested in specific stuff in the game, and the easy mode is probably a good way for someone to just get to know the stage layout, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And if they want to get a sheep clear, because that one is really easy to clear, it should be possible from almost anybody.
Nice. And so, as someone who, last time we talked, you mentioned that you play on the original hardware,
Yes.
on the arcade cabinet.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts of playing Battle Garegga on something like a PS4?
To me, honestly, there's really not that much of a difference in terms of the game itself. If I didn't have the arcade cabinet, I would definitely just play it on PS4. But now that I have it, I like the experience itself of just sitting down, because I feel the screen is perfect to me. The angle I'm sitting in is perfect. Just the control input is, stuck to this 180 kilo piece of machinery. So
anchored down.
Yes, it's anchored down. It feels really good to play. And also the fact that, in my mind at least, when I play with an arcade setup, then I've automatically minimized any input lag that I could possibly complain about. So every fault that I do is definitely going to be my own, and not something that's caused by some sort of weird buffering issue with the game, like you have in, for example, the 360 port of Mushima-sama Futari. If you download the Black Label pack, then you will have some sort of weird stuttering in certain places because of a bug, which might cause you to die. And also, if you have a monitor with input lag, then that would definitely affect your movement as well. So, I don't know. To me, it just feels like the most proper way to experience things.
Yeah, I had, before you mentioned that Battle Garegga had that built-in input lag. My
Yeah.
biggest concern with the port is the PS4 is pretty notorious for being a laggy as shit console for like fighting games and things like that. So I was really
Yeah, sure.
concerned before you drop all the money on the port,
Oh, okay. Yeah, I
if it's
think that was.
really laggy or if it feels pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know if that was mostly just an issue with Street Fighter 5 or if there are any other fighting games that had a lot of lag.
Tekken 7 had it too for a
Oh,
while.
Tekken 7 too. Okay. Honestly, I'm just guessing because it might be caused by the hardware being pretty old by now and programmers not really optimizing the game as much as they could for PS4.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it has anything to do with like the specific processor architecture, but I could be wrong. Anyways, Galaga is a much more lower intensive game on the CPU, so it's definitely not going to come anywhere close to Street Fighter 5 or Tekken 7. So
Right,
no,
that's awesome.
with a proper monitor, then you can play it lag free.
Yeah, and there actually is a way to play a PS4 on a CRT. It's kind of a pain in the ass to get it to go, but
Yeah.
it is
But
possible.
But they're supposed to be like, in quotation marks, lagless monitors. There are like, LCD or whatever too.
Uh-huh.
Or LEDs, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I've tested those, and the lowest lag you can ever get so far is
Yeah.
half a frame.
Okay.
So, and a lot of people, half a frame isn't a big deal. For me, it kind of is, but I'm kind of
Alright.
like that.
Yeah, I don't know if I really notice one frame. I know I noticed 2 frames of lag. Because
Yeah.
Galaga has like 3 or something. But,
Mhm.
even if you have like half a frame, or it would be 1 frame, I guess, logically. If you have 1 frame of lag, and then you play the Galaga port, you can set like from the console itself that you can set the input lag to 0, and then you will still just have like 1 frame of lag as opposed to 3 frames. 3 frames
Yeah.
on the PCB.
That's
So
an
you'll still-
awesome. Yeah, that's an awesome feature.
Yeah, so you'll still have lower lag on PS4 than on the PCB.
So the next thing I really wanted to talk to you about is Stunfest coming up.
Yes.
So I got the chance to actually do a little chatting with Plasmo, and he mentioned that you and him are doing an exhibition against each other, kind of.
Yeah, it's gonna be like a duel.
That's awesome.
The Battle of the Garagas.
And he also mentioned some super players have been invited.
Yes.
Do you know the full list of the super players?
Yeah, we have, first of all, and probably the biggest name I would say is Fufufu,
Mm-hmm.
who's playing Dodonpachi Daiorio White Label. And he's famous as one of the premier players who have really taken the game to newer heights in recent years with getting new world records and so on, and reworking a lot of routes. And he had an absolutely excellent performance at Washo in Tokage a couple of years ago, where he fucked up in second stage of the second loop, I think, which usually spells certain death, because the only way to regain lives in the second loop in Daioji White Label, as you probably know, is either to no miss a stage or no bomb a stage.
Right.
And I think he both missed and bombed on the second stage of the second loop, but he still cleared the game with really good scoring. So it was beyond insane. He played pretty much perfect.
Is that I saw an excellent video. Is it the one where he's wearing the surgical mask?
Yes.
On Icarus's channel? That is an excellent video.
Yeah, I know, it's absolutely insane. So we're gonna have him on stage play Daioji White Label, and we're also gonna have Saito, who's world record holder in Strikers 1945 too, I think, and he's gonna be playing that.
And what I was really excited about is I was looking over the stream schedule. It looks like Fufufu is playing on Championship Sunday, right before some of these fighting game finals.
Yes. He is concluding the shmup part of all of the shmup part of the exhibitions, and it's going to be really cool.
Yeah, and I was really interested to hear about, I guess, your experiences with doing live demonstrations, because for me, I know I'd be scared as hell, but...
Yeah, sure. I've only done it... Okay, I've done it twice before, I guess. Once was Stunfest a couple of years ago. I was supposed to do a demonstration on a smaller stage, but the schedule was weird, and I almost didn't make it schedule-wise, but I got to play around, and it was so. I don't know. I was mostly just a bit pissed off at the time, because everything had been so messed up with the schedule that I didn't really care.
Oh, yeah.
And second time I did something openly was with Icarus, actually, in Edinburgh. this December, where we went to the Combo Arcade Cafe, which is an absolutely excellent place, by the way, and had a really good fun time demonstrating Galaga and talking to a lot of local players and showing some stuff too. I was like super jet lagged, hungover, everything.
Oh no, hungover and jet lagged, huh?
Yes, it was, and super stressed as well. It was like it was an insane time, but I was still able to perform pretty well with a character I don't really play that much, so it felt good. And I don't think I'm gonna be able to be that nervous for Stunfest, honestly, because there are so many things that have to be prepared, and we're gonna have to work pretty hard during the week to make sure that everything goes well with the festival. So I don't think I'm gonna be able to reflect that much on my own performance until after it's done, to be honest.
Yeah, I can know it. So I've done a lot of, competitive gaming and things like that, and I felt like there's always two kinds of gamers, I guess you could say. When it comes to live demonstrations or, competition, they're the ones who really feed on it and can perform a lot better than just, in their home.
Yes.
And then there's the ones who, crumble or really struggle. Where would you kind of place yourself when you feel that kind of adrenaline?
Sure. From my experience, it's mostly the first category, because I really get, the more hype I get from doing something, and the more that I have put on the line, the more I get into it, and the more I think it's fun, So I definitely benefit from having like external pressure, and it's been the same thing when I played in arcades and had players watching me. Sometimes, I fucked up, and that can be like a pretty nervous feeling. But honestly, I just think it's a lot more fun because it's not only for me. I get to put on a show and do something.
Yeah, there is something really exciting about that.
Sure, and getting the feeling of actually pulling off the things that you know are hard to do when you have that pressure is a really, really good feeling.
And in our first interview, you mentioned that you're a musician. So I was wondering, maybe, do you think just your experience of maybe being on stage as a musician has kind of helped with that?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I think so. And just stuff in general where like the spotlight is on you, I guess.
Yes.
Because like everyone, I guess, I used to have stage nerves when I was playing music. But after a while, it went away. Didn't really care that much anymore. Just did my thing, and if it went well, I was happy. And I felt like I sucked. But I feel like getting a bit of a rush. Like you feel like something's actually happening now is a really good thing. But still, it's counterproductive to become inhibited by it, because it's like,
yes,
you can't really stop or change anything. If you go out there, you just need to go through with it. Just do it.
Absolutely.
As Shia LaBeouf would say.
Yeah. So another aspect of Stunfest that I'm really interested to hear about, and hopefully maybe I can get back to you after Stunfest, is the Exa Arcadia is being demonstrated there. Isn't that right?
It's right. It's correct.
Have you ever gotten your hands on it up to this point?
No, I haven't. It's only been in Japan so far as to about a month ago in Spain, where they did this like huge arcade thing with fighting games, and they invited some Japanese players over, including Kamui, the world record holder for gaming Battle Galaga. And they had one X arcade cabinet there, I think, and demonstrated Akato Blue.
Oh yes.
Yeah, the newer game from Tamashimas, a company founded by former cave employees. And so I haven't gone to touch it myself, but I'm really curious about the hardware and what their business plan is like, and what they're planning to do, because what I've heard so far seems really interesting, and I think it could potentially really help revitalize the entire genre.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, I was reading a little bit about the specs on their website, and one thing that I love to hear is that not only does it do, digital output and things like that, but it also has the ability to use analog output as well. Yeah,
exactly. It has like JAMA and probably JVS and HDMI, I think. Yeah, and it's like, you can't really ask for anything else.
No, there's nothing left to ask for.
No, and I mean, in that way you can do proper 15 kilohertz too, so it's like, it feels like they've covered all the angles, to be honest.
Yeah, and I'm really curious to see, as more information comes out, if it, can be kind of maybe a step up from even, the arcade games, the later arcade games from Cave, as far as
Yes.
hardware, graphics. I mean, I'd be excited for that.
Yeah, most definitely, because the old Cave hardware wasn't really that good, and there are some things that are like, really noticeable about hardware limitations, like in most of the later Cave games where there's a lot of, pachinko style graphics everywhere with huge flashing gold things and whatever. A lot of the times, you get some probably unwanted slowdown, like in games like Akai Katana.
Right.
Slowdown gets absolutely crazy, and a lot of the times, like when you're scoring high, the UI entirely disappears.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, and that's true for a lot of the later Cave games, and I don't really think that's... And sometimes even, like, if you play... I know this personally because I played the game a bit in Futari Black Label God mode. If you perform like a super big cancel with max multiplier, then sometimes not only the UI, but your ship sprite will disappear too.
Oh, jeez. Is the hitbox still on screen, though? Like, can you still die?
And bullet hitboxes as well. So,
oh, that's terrible.
But you can't see your own sprite, so it's like
It's like that Master Invisible Tetris. Have you ever heard of, like, Grandmaster Tetris?
Oh, yeah, the credits.
The blocks go invisible and stuff.
Exactly, but it's for a shoot 'em up instead. I think there's like a mission in Blue Revolver that's kind of based on something similar, but it's like the bullets get invisible when they're closer to your hitbox.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool thing to play around with. But it's not cool when it's unintentional.
Especially in God mode. I mean, that sounds like a high-pressure situation.
Yeah, definitely. You should, if you ever interview Pestro, you should talk to him about it.
Okay, I definitely will.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely want to hear about stuff like that. So, returning back to you as a player, sure. I think I'm very curious to learn about something about yourself, and I think many people who, aren't quite on the level of doing demonstrations at Stunfest, I kind of want to learn about your journey from, being a noob to being where you are now, and kind of the steps and the, evolution of that.
Yeah, sure. Kind of like pointed out in a general path, it was like, it was a combination of a lot of like factors coming into place at the right time, because before I started playing shoot 'em ups, I'd become interested in like retro gaming.
Mm-hmm.
So I bought like a Super Nintendo with old games and was re-experiencing old games like Contra 3, which I really like, and started playing shoot 'em ups like Axley, which I thought was really cool.
Oh, I love that game.
Yes, awesome music, awesome stages.
That was actually the first shmup I ever won credit cleared.
Oh, me too.
If you can say there's a credit, but you know what I mean.
Sure. It was my first too. And I had to work hard for it at the time. But I remember the feeling was really nice. And then this arcades place I talked about before opened up.
Mm-hmm.
And, that journey aside, I became a regular, so I started playing more and more and got really invested in it. And then I went into military service, so I couldn't play for like half a year before I had enough free time to like put in a couple of credits, I guess. And I would say summer of 2012 when I went to Japan was a really big thing just for pure motivation, because
oh, sure,
so many good players and see so much good play, and it got me like really inspired to continue this as a hobby.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, it was like sort of on the down low. I played a couple of credits every now and then. When I basically moved back here to start studying, and then I got like the request to go to Stunfest, and Prometheus told me that I might be able to do a demonstration, and that got me practicing more. So it was like I would categorize all this time period. This is like probably over 3 years.
Yes.
As like the first block, I would say, like
right.
From noob to something else. This was like score-wise, I think I was around a D or something with Golden Bat.
Mm-hmm.
But the Stunfest prospect got me interested in practicing more, so I started doing that. But eventually, like after Stunfest, I got inspired by meeting all the players there, of course. But
yes.
I still felt like a bit of burnout from playing the ship. So after a while, I just kind of let it lay down for a bit and played a bunch of other games. But then about a year later, in 2015, I got inspired to go back in and just, for once I thought, okay, let's try something new. So I picked a character I'd never played. Well, I've only played one before, but still, I picked
Mm-hmm.
Miyamoto. And it was so different from what I'd experienced before. Like, the way you played him was completely different, scoring was completely different, movement was completely different, all the routes were completely different. And it felt
Right.
extremely refreshing to me because I knew the game pretty well, but this was like an entirely different way to approach it. And that got me a lot more inspired to get back in the game. And so I started playing more Golden Bat, and I got what the score I wanted at the time. And then I just kept on exploring other ships because pretty quickly I got a pretty good Miyamoto score from like not doing really that much fancy stuff. And I was like, I could probably make this go up a lot higher, and I should do that. So I started playing it a bit more seriously. I got a pretty good score, and then I was like, okay, this was the most fun I've had with the game, so why not try it with different ships? And so after that, I just, I basically went over every ship, looked around for resources, and tried to figure out a lot of stuff on my own because for some ships, there were like not that much stuff available at all, honestly.
Did you have to end up kind of completing that research on your own?
In some cases, yes, and there's certain questions I still have no answers to. Like, I'm at a pretty decent level with most ships, but at least for maybe all of them except for game, I still have no idea what exactly goes into world record level play because 90% I can understand.
Right.
Like if you get to 90% of world level, but after that, it's like I in some cases I can't really see where the points come from.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, where do these magical points appear from? It's like, I can imagine with my routes now, like I have with Bornholm, for an example, which is percentage-wise my highest scoring ship. The routes that I have right now could lead to like 17 million. And that's in the optimal case where everything goes super well. And, I have really good RNG throughout and make no mistakes whatsoever. And the world record is like 17.8 or something. So I'm like, okay, wow, this is almost a million more points, which is a lot in this game. And I have absolutely no idea where they come from.
So going back to your earlier days of picking up and playing, I was wondering, was there ever a moment that you sat down and said, okay, I'm going to get really freaking good at this game? Or was it more of like an organic process?
It was both organic and inorganic. Because, as I think I told you before, what first got me interested in Garaga was the music. Because I'd heard, I don't think I did. Anyways, I'd heard the soundtrack on YouTube before, and I was like, okay, shit, this is really good video game music. And that in itself got me into stuff like Detroit techno, because I realized a lot of the songs were just rip-offs from Underground Resistance songs and Dan Curtin stuff. So, but anyways, I thought it was really cool. And then I was like, when I had the opportunity to play the game, I was like, okay, I should check this out because this game has an awesome soundtrack and it looks pretty cool. And it's supposed to be like a Masters game, whatever, bought into the hype. First couple of credits I played it, I didn't really like it. So I would say that's definitely inorganic because I kind of forced myself to play it more
Yes.
because of the music only, and after a while, it just grew on me. I would liken it to like more than any other shoot 'em up I played. Maybe Hishosan, honestly, because I hated that game at first. Super old school, super slow moving ship, a lot of unfair design, like things approaching you from the back and so on. But after a while, it just like it grows on you, and I would liken it to something like running, I guess, because when I started
Hmm.
running, like first 10 hours of running, I guess I hated it. I thought
Oh,
it
yeah.
sucked. It sucked completely. It was like every second I do this feels like shit. But
Uh-huh.
after a while, after like 10 proper good runs, I was like getting more and more into it, and then it felt like, okay, I'm actually getting a handle of this. I'm understanding things. It feels better being able to pull stuff off, and I feel like I'm rapidly improving. And I would say from there on out, like after the first big hurdle with Garaga, the rest was just purely organic because I got so intrigued by the game and all of the possibilities that it offers.
Hmm.
Because, you know, this is the game I've focused the most on, so I'm really
Yes.
biased. But I don't think there are any games that even come close to it in terms of what you can actually experience, like in depths of different problems you can encounter and ways that you have to go about to tackle these different problems. So it's kind of interesting. There's a really good, or well, he's a world record holder, SDD Kaede. He's got world record with Miyamoto in Garaga, and he regularly streams at CaveTube. Usually streams like Dodonpachi, Garaga, and some other games. And one thing he said is, with a Garaga run, unless you're close to the score that's being performed on the replay, you won't be able to understand anything.
Oh, yeah, I see.
Yeah, and it's like because when I see a replay with someone who's at a similar level that I am, I guess, then I can see the decision making because there are like certain parts where I see that they cover for like 5 different scenarios depending on what happens with the RNG,
Yes.
and I don't think that's something that someone who's not played the game a lot would see at all.
Right.
Yeah.
I would agree. It's like when people watch, things like fighting games and you sit
Yes.
there and you're not familiar with the game at all and you're just seeing two characters dashing
Mm.
backwards and forwards or just throwing fireballs. You're like, oh, that just seems really simple. And then when you
Sure.
get really good at the game, you start to realize how intricate all
Yeah.
that, all their movements are and their decisions are. I'm
Sure.
sure with
It's like
Third Strike, you've experienced that.
definitely, and I would say it's the same with everything. Basically, the more you know, the less you know that. Well, the more you know that you don't know anything. I guess it's something like
Yes.
that. Yeah,
It's like the
yeah,
more you know, the more ignorant you feel, sort of.
yeah, pretty much. There's a similar sort of feeling with this, and with fighting games, it's a really good analogy, in my opinion, because I think in terms of like execution, because if someone is new to a game, what
Hmm.
they're going to focus on most is execution because it's pretty easy to grasp. Like you have movement and whatever. Strategy and routes are just like pretty. They're not even on the level to consider routing yet. It's just like okay,
Yes.
basic execution. I can understand this. Do like a combo after a hit confirm or whatever. I can understand this, like input wise, but maybe not in terms of strategy. And it's only when you're like practicing or playing either fighting games or shoot 'em ups. I feel at least it's only when you've internalized execution and
Hmm.
made it like part of your I don't know muscle memory
Right.
that you can start to consider the more esoteric things like strategy, planning, routing, because you don't have to. You can actually make decisions that don't concern execution at all.
Hmm.
Because in my mind, like keeping your brain occupied with execution would just like it would be way too much work to think strategically at the same time. So yeah,
Uh-huh. And it's something like your mind can only focus on 3 or 4 things at a time anyway.
yeah, sure. We don't have multi-threaded processors yet.
So with translating from execution into a kind of a shmup situation,
Yeah.
when you were practicing early on, what were you kind of focusing on? I'll give you an
Yes.
example. up till now, I'm still kind of focusing on this. When I'm practicing DOJ, a lot of what I'm doing is still practicing, like, learning to kind of feel my ship without looking at it. I'm really focusing on, dodging the bullets.
Yeah.
And kind of thinking at the more immediate level, rather than, when you watch high-level players, they're thinking of way far ahead, their score, the combos, their rank. So how did you approach Grega? Did you approach it kind of from the immediate and then expand out, or did you start looking into the higher concepts early on?
It was a bit of a combination of both, because, of course, when I started out as a beginner and I didn't know, wasn't familiar with it, like a lot of things were concerned with just basic survival and reacting to what happened, and try to learn from there. But I think in general, like, and I'm like this sort of person when it comes to everything, I guess. It's like when I've been able to do something, let's say I've cleared stage 1 in a game or stage 2 or whatever, then I know that, okay, I can do this, I can clear this. And the next time I do it, I'm gonna search for ways to optimize it.
Okay.
And when I feel like I'm comfortable with my level of optimization, like, okay, this is way more consistent now or whatever, then I'm gonna look into, okay, how can I do stuff to improve this? Can I change anything? So this has been like my general practice method, that because I've only played runs with Garaga. So I start with, like, first of all, I try to figure out what I need to do, like, basically, and then I make sure to practice to be able to perform it basically. And when I've done that, I try to look into, are there any ways I can make this more consistent? If there are, okay, go ahead, do it. And when I've done the things more consistently, so I can get a pretty consistent result, then I look for ways to, like, okay, is there anything I can do to change things around and probably get a different result from what I'm doing now? And this has been like a very iterative process. Like, my routes have been changing constantly when playing the game. And I mean, just my routes for Bornham, for an example, they were pretty similar for a while. And Bornham is, in my opinion, the easiest ship to get started with scoring, because he's definitely the most consistent in terms of RNG and stuff like that. And I changed the routes completely recently. And, like, the gameplay is completely different now from how I used to do it, but it's given me like 1 more million of potential points. And I just basically I changed one tiny factor, and then a lot of things happened as a chain reaction caused by that.
Right. Yeah. Right. It's like you change 1 point of the route, and then you got to go through and reroute almost a bunch of other stuff too sometimes.
Sure, it's like the butterfly effect.
Yeah. I've done that a lot.
Yeah,
recently.
I know. Yeah, I think it's true for most games, but I feel it's really good too, because you really force your brain to think about things in new perspectives, and then you can probably make some realization that you otherwise wouldn't have been able to.
I think one thing that I've learned by doing that is there's been times where I've been practicing with an unoptimal route, for sure, and then I'll go back and fix it up, and then I'll kind of get a little bit mad at myself. I'm like, Mark, you spent the last 3 weeks practicing a route that was completely useless. But there's been times where I'll go for my optimal route, but I'll mess up and somehow end up in a situation similar to the route I practiced before. So
and then you know what to do.
Yeah, so I could still kind of save the situation and try to get things corrected and put back in place.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to plan for, especially with I've been thinking about it recently with Garaga as well, since I've been practicing for this demonstration, and I really want to make it. I want to perform, so. I've been looking into ways like, okay, first of all, I know what, my optimal route is going to look like. But, this is going to be live on stage and in a game that's very run insecure because there's so much randomness. So what do I do if I fuck up?
Right, yes.
Yes, so I've been practicing a bit like Murphy's Law applied to Garaga. Yes. So it's like, okay, I lose a medal here where it really matters. What do I do? Because, I'm going to try to not restart at all if possible.
Yeah.
Because I feel that, like, it takes the energy out of everything. I would rather play a run with, like, subpar potential that's interesting to look at than just reset endlessly.
Yeah, I think I agree with you there, because for a high-level player, I mean, I can definitely understand why you'd want to reset. But for an audience that you're performing for, who 98% of them have no idea what you're doing, no idea about scoring or anything, if you just make it through in one credit, they'll be happy. They'll be like, oh my god, that's so cool.
Yeah, definitely. And in my opinion, like, sometimes the best demonstrations are the ones that aren't perfect. Like,
you get to see their skill in action.
Yeah, the Foo replay where, he fucks up real badly and then he actually exceeds all expectations and clears. That's, in my mind, the best live demonstration I've ever seen. And that only happened because he messed up.
Right.
And, seeing someone still able to save everything and perform under that pressure is really impressive. So, I don't know, maybe we'll see something similar this time.
Yeah, there's something to be said about that, because I remember last year when I was trying to do my first clear of Dodonpachi, the first loop, I haven't done the second, but I remember I would gotten to the stage where I felt like I could do it, so I spent a week just doing runs over and over, and after a while, I'd always mess up on like the last two stages.
Oh.
And so after a while, I just started getting a little burnt out, and I remember dying in stage 2, like really early on.
Yes.
And I was like, okay, my run should be done. But I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna play it through anyway.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't really have as much pressure on myself, and that ended up being the run where I cleared it, because I just played from the heart, so to say. I just let it all hang out, and I ended up making it work.
I know. I have a lot of very similar experiences. Like, I would say pretty much up to the point that I am now, where like all of the other scores previously in Garaga were they were really like suboptimal, a lot of mistakes now. And I could do that at that time. Like, I could still play a run, I make a mistake where I would normally reset, but I didn't, continued playing and got a new personal best. But now it's like, I'm at the point where I can't really make any mistakes if I want to improve.
Right.
So
yes, you've gotten that good.
Or well, I've gotten myself into that sort of annoying situation. But that safety net is gone. But I know the feeling, and usually I think it's like run karma, because you can get a lot of really good RNG in Garaga as well. And I think every run that I've had like exceptionally good RNG. Like this is like 1 in 1,000 chance or something. The run always turned to shit at some crucial part. Like, I missed something that I would very easily do otherwise, but the nerves and the possibilities in my mind, I wasn't focusing enough on the game, just being too much in my head, I think.
Have you ever had an experience? I've never experienced this with shmups. I definitely have with fighting games, because I was a lot more intense back then, but have you ever had experience where you're doing really well, and then something small goes wrong, and you end up just losing it and getting really pissed off? Have you ever had something like that?
Yeah, definitely. It's like a chain of bad reactions. It hasn't happened in a long time. It used to happen a lot. And for some time, it was like, when I was practicing the game, even if I made a mistake, like I dropped a medal at stage 6 or something, then I would just kill off the credit. But that was really bad for me, because it made me look at the game like it was more work than fun and play, I guess. And it made everything feel more like a chore or hassle. So I stopped doing it, and even if I fuck up now, I still continue the credit. Like I will see it through to the end.
Plus you get practice at the end too.
Exactly. It might not be the same situation you would practice for normally, but still it's good practice, because you never know when something like that might happen anyway. So it's always good to practice any situation you can get into. And one thing I thought about now too, like I thought back a bit about what you asked before about performing under pressure.
Yes.
And I realized that 2 of like my, I would say like stepping stone cave clears when I was starting out. It was, first of all, clearing the first loop of Ketsu.
Okay.
That was like, pretty early on. But it was like, it felt like a really hard game to clear when I was new. And when I did it, it was like, I was at a friend's place, and I was like, we were playing Katsuri, and I had the first credit, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to see if I remember the routes, whatever. And then I cleared it for the first time.
In front of your friend?
Yes. And same thing with when another friend came back to my place after we hadn't seen each other for a long while. He comes to my place, and I'm like, yeah, you want to play some Foot Black Label, because he played a lot of original before. And we do that. He plays a credit of original, then I boot up God mode, which I hadn't played in a very long time, and I cleared God mode.
Well, hell yeah.
Yeah, it was like, totally unexpected, but it was only because, I think it was only because of the added pressure that I felt that since they were there, I didn't want to be shit.
Well, yeah, that definitely supports your theory then, because both of those stories you're in front of you had an audience.
Yeah, even if it wasn't that big.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a more ethereal, kind of out there question.
Sure.
But I don't get the chance to talk to people with these kinds of, I guess, achievements.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's something I've always wondered about.
Okay.
So when I play, games seriously, I usually set kind of an endpoint goal for myself.
Yes.
Like with Third Strike or something. I want to be able to parry well and look cool for my friends, or, get through the first loop of this one.
Sure.
But I've never really seriously considered I'm going for a world record in something, or I'm going to be number one in this game, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
Do you have the type of thought and personality where you thought to yourself, I'm going to go that far? Or was it kind of just you stumbled up and ended up going that far?
Yeah, it's been stumbling. It started off with I guess, I had a good score to aim for in the first place, like with Golden Bat. I wanted to get second place first because I saw that was pretty easy.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was the Randorama score, which was on forums D.6 for a while, and that was actually a goal for me because I aimed okay, I want to take this score. I want to be number one with this ship. That was intentional, I really wanted to do that. But then it was just a pure coincidence, I guess. I stumbled upon the other characters, and I realized that I could pretty easily get way up with them. And in terms of the Schnops forum scores, I aim to have the highest score with all of them except for Shitta, because Ket, the one who he was only on the forum for a couple of weeks during an STG tournament, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And he put up some Garaga scores, and the Shitta one is pretty insane. It's close to world record level. I think he was world record holder at one point. And that's something I definitely won't aim for, but the rest I will try to take. But going for a proper world record in that game, never.
Okay, that's what I was about to ask you.
Sure.
Is there ever...
Yeah,
is there ever a moment where you look at those Japanese super plays and you're like, maybe I can get there? Or does it just seem a world away?
With Garaga, it's a decade away, at least.
Yeah.
A decade of constant playing. Because, as I said last time, I think all of the world record holders and the people who are really invested in the game and still play it regularly in the arcades, they've been playing the game basically since release, and have found out everything about it, all of the small intricacies, and they know exactly everything that you could know about the game possibly. And
you mentioned they're getting points from you don't know where. They're just
exactly
getting points.
Yeah, and at that level, it's getting points. It's like with any shoot 'em up, I guess, that doesn't have an exponential scoring system. You get diminishing returns all of the time. the higher up you go.
Right.
And going from like, with Bornham, going from 90% to 100% is like, it's ridiculous. I think, just to give an example here, Kaede, the Miyamoto player who has world record, I think over a period of 5 years or something, he improved his score, the world record, with 150,000 points over a period of 5 years.
5 years. Oh,
yeah,
wow, that's a long time.
Constant playing. So it's like, the level is ridiculous. And the worst thing is, I still don't think that all of the ships are maxed out.
Right.
And I know some of them aren't. Like, Kamui is still aiming to someday get 21 mil with gain, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But that's going to be like, the wonder run. But, considering how dedicated the players are, how much they know, how ridiculous their skills are, and that I still have no idea where a lot of those points come from, then it's like, no, I wouldn't ever try to go for anything like that.
It almost sounds like even if you decided, yes, that's what I want, it would be one hell of a journey.
Definitely.
That you may have to end up, quitting your job or something.
Exactly.
And just playing Garega 24/7.
Absolutely. And, of course I can't do that. So, but I think, I used to set like different goals all the time. And I thought, okay, when I reach this goal, maybe I'll quit the game, whatever. But I never did. And to me, I think the main goal now is just betterment.
Yes.
Just to try to get better every time, and I'm happy with it. I don't really care about specific scores, but like getting above 90% feels good. I think that's a good level to be at. Yeah, I think it's good for sanity too, because if I was obsessed with like trying to get even higher, that would be very detrimental to my mental health and personal life, whatever.
Uh-huh. Oh yeah. So, one game I wanted to ask you about,
sure,
since I did a little more research on Battle Garega, is Armored Police Batrider?
Armed Police Batrider, even.
Armed Police Batrider. I'll correct that in
post. No problem. They're focusing more on attack instead of defense. Yeah, it's
absolutely.
It's a really badass game, and I used to have the PCB. I still own it, but it's away for service and has been away for like 1 year.
Oh no.
No, it's okay. It's just I had a little issue with it where if I didn't put like the dip switches on a very specific credit setting, then the controls would get like sort of inversed.
Oh geez.
Yeah, but it's a very easy problem and it's still playable. So I'm looking to like get better at it at least, because I want to get a good score with a clear in advance.
Mm-hmm.
But I also know that world record level or something similar to that game, in that game, is not something for me. I just think it's a really badass game and I want to get better at it, but nothing ridiculously high.
I was interested to hear you maybe compare and contrast it to Garega, because I've been watching the two, and there's times where it feels like there's similar boss battles. Does that sound accurate to you?
I would say it's a bit of an evolution, I guess, in some senses, and a regression in others, because there's still, a huge amount of RNG at work with a lot of the bosses, and some can really fuck you over with giving you bad RNG. I don't know, it's pretty similar, but it's more approachable than Garega, definitely, because the tricks that you have to do in specific cases, they are nowhere near as complicated as they are in Garega, in terms of execution and planning and what have you. Everything is like, I would say the complexities are dialed down a bit, and stuff is more approachable. Like in Garega, for example, you only have a couple of frames of invisibility after pressing bomb button. So one of the most common things for players who play like Golden Bat is they bomb and then they're hit by a bullet immediately after the invincibility frames off, and then they die. But in Batrider, you have full invincibility for the entire duration of the bomb, and a lot of other stuff like that, which makes it more approachable. And unless you're going for like super high scoring route, because I would say this is the problem. Like the specific tricks you do in Garega are probably harder to execute, but routing is definitely harder in Batrider.
Oh.
Because if you go for max score in that game, you need to have a team consistent of three different characters, and you have to make sure that at certain like trigger points during the stages, you have a certain character, which means that you have to have a certain score up to that point. And at least in advanced, this is really hard to do because a rank can get out of control really easily, and the only way to like really control rank in the beginning is to suicide down to your last extent all of the time. So it's like, in terms of routing, you have to make sure that you're on your last life all of the time, and you have to make sure that you have that the life you're on is like the specific, or well, that you only have one life in reserve, but whatever, and that you have the specific character in reserve required to trigger the extra boss for all of these different parts. And the thing is, like, if you miss, because it gets super complex, because you have like let's see how many instances. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, depending on 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I think there are like 10 or 11 extra bosses.
Oh.
Yeah, it's 11 or 12 extra bosses even. But it's like if you miss out on one of the bosses, then your score will take a hit, which probably means that you won't be able to trigger the other extra bosses correctly. So it's like you miss out on one part and then you're fucked. Yes, the entire run is over, or it's like you suicide down to your last life to reduce rank to prepare for like the next extend or whatever. Since you only have like one opportunity to perform, you get hit by a really bad RNG attack and then you die and you get game over. So it's like I would say Batrider Advanced is probably the easiest game to spoil a high scoring run in. It's ridiculous, and I know a lot of the players who played it on a high level have become really frustrated by that fact.
Yeah, and can that happen really early on in the run, or does it?
It can happen really early on, just like with Yariga. The earlier stages are really short, and the latter stages are really long. Yeah, because in Garaga it's like first couple of 4 stages take like 15 minutes, and then 5th stage takes like 15 minutes. So it's just as long as the 4 previous stages, and then you have stage 6, which is pretty long, and so it's pretty ridiculous. But Batrider is a game I want to get into later on, definitely.
Not right now, but yeah, I could see it'd probably be not easy, but an easier process to transition into that from Garaga.
Yeah, I think so.
I'd assume.
Or well, I'm not sure, but I'm guessing at least.
So for the future of shmups, it's kind of a rough situation right now as far as getting old school kind of developers, they're all kind of left, Cave and things like that. So moving forward, what do you kind of want to see in the next generation of shmups? What would be kind of the gameplay elements that you would really like to be emphasized?
I would say, first of all, like, just focus on the basics of the genre. Like really tight controls, good game feel, good level design, and good base challenge. Because this is what drew me in the first place, and I think that's like the main staples of the genre and what makes it unique. And that needs to be there. And I would say like going in the way of extremely esoteric scoring systems, like Cave has done at times, probably not the way for me forward at least, because sometimes it can get really obtuse. I don't know. I would like to see someone like try to do something new with regards to how we perceive scoring, perhaps. Like, I really like in the Yagawa games where scoring is tied into lives, and how lives are used as a resource. And I want to see more of that, like more utilization of everything you have, not the no miss no bomb standard, but that you're actually able to use your resources for something. I think that's a really good way to go about it.
One thought I had when I was sitting down and thinking about, shmup design, that would be really interesting and make the scoring, I guess, matter more to casual players, is if they made a mechanic where you start with a score, like, let's say 1 million. You start with 1 million, and instead of increasing, your score is constantly draining, and the only way to stay alive is to score higher and higher and higher. So basically, it's like your score is like a timer, and you have to rack up points to stay alive. And if you run out of score, you die.
That's almost like a time attack mode.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of like one of these arcade racing games,
Exactly.
Yeah, like Daytona USA, the shooter.
that Cruising USA.
Cool. Yeah, Cruising USA, and you have like a racing cars to play sprite. That would be pretty cool, honestly.
I was just trying to think of something like that, but...
Sure, I think that's a good idea. Or like anything that just changes around the formula is necessary, in my opinion, to prevent stagnation. But not too much, like the basics need to be there.
And would you like to see, because I've been thinking about this, you know how, Cave kind of really brought in with Dodonpachi the laser mechanic?
Yes.
Would you like to see, maybe with future shmups, a different type of mechanic to the base gameplay, kind of like that, where it's
Yes,
part of the fundamental gameplay,
sure,
but it's new.
definitely. Yeah, I would like to see something. I don't personally know what it would be, but I would like to see something like that, which it like has a similar role to the fast versus focused type of shot.
Yes.
Because I feel like that was the introduction of that into shoot 'em ups was a definite improvement on the basic formula, and seeing like more improvements at such a general level would be really interesting. Even though I have no idea where they would come from at all.
Yeah. Well, awesome, man. Is there anything that you would like to say before you go, or other than they need to watch Stunfest, of course?
Yeah, of course. Like, watch Soundfest. Please play more Garaga, and if you want to, please beat my scores. It would be good motivation to keep playing even more.
Oh yeah.
Even though I'm not gonna stop, but still.
Do you have any kind of rivals right now that are near your score that are creeping up on it?
It used to be WS, Chinese guy.
Mm-hmm.
He used to be close to me with Bornham, but I don't think he's improved since then. And so I'm not really sure, but going against him for the Bornham score was really fun, and he went up really fast as well. Like, he must have practiced a lot, and he's an extremely good player too. But as of right now, I don't really have anyone who's competing directly against me, but I hope for some of the players who are going at it now to be able to give me a run for my money later on.
Right.
Because I like the competition.
Well, yeah, I think that's a really fun aspect of playing these games.
I agree. And of course, I also want to thank you for having me again. This has been really fun and some really good and very insightful questions as well.
Yeah, it was fun having you on again.
No problem, mate.
And
Anytime.
One last very quick question is, what I'm wanting to do is, after Stunfest is over, I want to kind of do a event review kind of thing, like a retrospective on it.
Yeah, sure.
And so I'm going to try and reach out to people who are there for interviews. Would you be interested?
Definitely.
Awesome. All right, man. Well, thanks for your time. Have a good night.
Yeah, you too. And thank you very much for doing all of this. It's great.